Dr. J Loops is in the house, and I welcome you.
Woo!
Bro, it's lovely to see you.
It is lovely to be here. How are you feeling?
I'm good. But there's two things before we get started. Have you got the bottle? Okay, you got it. Cool. That's the first thing. That's the bottle,
Oh,
right?
I received it. Thank you very much.
So before we get there, I would like for you to tell me again, or tell the listeners, the story of how we didn't make the interview last week.
Yeah, do you want to hear? Is that for? I suppose that can be for your listeners. Why not? Yeah, we were supposed to record this a few days ago, and I was sitting right here in my living room, just looking at the garden, and I'd had a really substantially productive morning, which I love. And this company that sent me these edibles, these different sorts of like cannabis products, as well as some CBD oil for my dog Maya. She's lying right here,
Hi, Maya.
and
Oh,
she knows we're talking about her. And yeah, and so I'd taken some of these microdose things that they had given me, which I found quite useful for creative work. And I was finished with all my admin. I was like, I'm going to go in the studio. I'm going to microdose some of these like edibles they sent me. It's going to be awesome. And I'm going to smash the rest of this day out creatively. I've got this acoustic song I'm working on at the moment. And
it'll build up nicely to our interview about poison.
yeah, well, I literally, I'm old enough not to spike myself anymore, really. But that's exactly what I did. I ate this one brownie, which was so tasty as well. And all the other things that I tried of theirs were microdoses. And I was like, this must be what the company does. Have really perfected the art of not getting you to like lose your shit on their edibles. And then after about 40 minutes, I was like, oh no, I'm about to have like a full zombified experience. I could feel it. Like I knew that feeling so well from when I was like 17 or 18 or whenever it was that we were stupid enough to still eat quantity of edibles. And I basically just got my stuff, got the dog, and I left the house and I went like exploring to the beach. And I was like, cool, I've got about 6 hours or 8 hours before I'm supposed to be on a podcast. I have 3 calls I'm going to need to cancel immediately. So, and I was like, but I honestly thought that by the time it gets to John, I'll be fine because that's like many hours away. Turns out I was still totally wired though. I was still drifting around, like basically out of my mind. It was exciting, but yeah, I know you said to me we should do the podcast anyways. This would make for great podcasting. And I just felt like my face was melting. So I was like, maybe great for you, but not great for me.
Have you done any microdosing today, or did that put you off for a little bit?
Oh, no, it didn't put me off. It was just a mistake. Afterwards, I kind of barked at Celeste, who works for me. And I was like, you should have told me that this box was like full of like also harder edibles because the way that it was sold to me where these were like microdoses and they were, it was all packaged so fancy. And she was like, Jim, I told you on the labels it says how many milligrams. Which one did you have? And I was like, well, I had the 50 milligram one and a little bit of another one. And she was like, oh, no, you mustn't do that. And I was like, well, so I just need to be better about the doses. That's all.
So just tell me a little bit about the philosophy of microdosing. Oh, yeah.
Look, I'm probably not the right guy to ask about the detail. I don't do it all that often, but as I've got older, a lot of us, I think, feel we don't really like that feeling as much of being out of control, and so you choose your moments to let your hair down and be completely out of control. And for me, at least, as I got older, less and less I feel inclined to kind of just push my own limits because I've been there and I understand that world and I enjoy my sobriety a lot, actually. And so microdosing is this interesting middle space where you get to kind of play with some of the effects of your favorite poisons, I suppose, without the full experience that I had by mistake the other day. And so like with mushrooms, mushroom microdosing is becoming a very, it's a very popular thing for especially people who work in creative fields. It just kind of gives you a little bit of like an open-minded tingle, and as opposed to a full body mushroom trip. And then with CBD as well, like you get CBD infused things. So like the company that that sent me this box, they make these delicious cherries, which are like, it's like a thing of alcohol cherries, and you can put them in drinks. They're very mild. You would have to eat like probably 4 or 5 of them in a row to even feel it,
Mm.
but it does something as far as just like, yeah, makes you feel quite lekker. So for me, when I'm done with creative work, sometimes I like to get stoned if I'm in the studio, but if I don't feel like actually smoking weed and getting stoned, then I would sometimes maybe microdose.
Mm.
And I don't know. Like I said, I'm not the right guy. There's people that do this stuff every week. I'm a fair weather user, and now more recently probably won't be doing too much of it for
Have
some
you
time.
ever tried ayahuasca? Is that something for you or not really?
It definitely is. Hey, no, I haven't. I dabbled with quite a lot of psychedelics before music took my life
Mm.
over, and it was actually because of LSD, really, and to some extent, some other things like mushrooms and hape and other things I was experimenting with at the time, that I realized I was not going to be cut out for what I'd studied. I'd studied a business degree. So I'd just come out of UCT, 4 years of business and accounting and finance, and law. And basically that coincided with a lot of like experimentation I was doing and a lot of music I was playing and photography I was doing. I was just obsessed with creative things, and some of those things really actually helped set me and crystallize me down a path of trusting my instincts towards my creative side. And I kind of, yeah, once music started really going, I lost interest in trying to, I suppose the search kind of ended for me a little bit, because that's what it's really about. Like
Mm.
most of us are experimenting and trying to flex our minds so that we might find some answers, for whatever the existential funk in your life is. And I feel like I really found that, when I found music, all of that locked in, and I stopped searching, which has been nice. And it's only now in my mid 30s that I've been more interested in kind of saying, well, what might I search for if I now have a bit more
I've
time
got
and
what I came for.
a
It's
bit more
time to just
stability?
see what's outside the boundaries there.
Yeah, yeah. So ayahuasca is definitely on the cards. I think for me, nothing's ever been off the cards. I've always been like a hyper moderate person. So I have no fear of getting addicted to things. It just has never been my problem, and I've always been very strong-willed around like keeping my moderate. So I've always been able to get quite excited about
That's a
trying
very
new
useful
things.
personality trait.
Yeah, it's like a superpower in a way. And I didn't realize it when I was growing up, but as I watched so many of my friends really struggle with addiction,
Mm.
and my family, everyone, it's. I realized I was actually in a vast minority of people who find it quite easy to moderate.
Are you much of a drinker?
Yeah, I enjoy drinking. Yeah, I mean,
Do it, man.
I do enjoy drinking. I'm a red wine enthusiast.
Aha.
I have ambitions to have vineyards one day and make wine if I can. But for now, I'm just an avid red wine enjoyer, and obviously I drink whiskey as well, which is my other poison.
Nice. Well, let's have a look what we got here. So the vibe is, well, I think what I wanted to do was something quite Christmassy for you, actually. Um, it's this Loch Lomond. Oh, you got one?
I got
Nice.
one. Yeah.
I've never had one, but I do know that it's a very good whiskey. So I don't know if you've had it.
I mean, I love a single malt Scotch whiskey, so it's ticking a lot of boxes straight out of the bat, and I like its packaging.
Let's give it a go. If you're up for it on a 4:30 in the afternoon in
Oh,
a
I've
weekday.
not. Yeah, I've knocked off ages ago. I mean, the beautiful thing about my life is that I mean, that's how I got into this mess with the edibles in the first place. It was midday, but it just felt like I've got enough work done. This is the right time to. I suppose when you're an artist, you can find a lot of excuses for having a bit of fun.
Nice. Well,
What
firstly,
about what about you though? I mean, this has felt like a grilling on my substance abuse.
no,
What
there's no grilling going on here.
Not sorry, grilling was the wrong word. I just feel like I've spent the first 15 minutes talking all about my my experiences. What's your poison?
You're drinking it. Um,
Okay.
I'm like I'm a whiskey fanatic. There's these guys, Whiskey Brother, who I've partnered with. I mean, how it worked was I was doing this podcast. I just love whiskey. I shop there. It's like a candy store for me. After many episodes of buying whiskey for people, I basically said, let's do a partnership where you choose the whiskey, you deliver the whiskey, and I'll do the hard job of drinking it.
Okay.
Um, and they're great. They're really great business. So it's worked out really well.
What did you say the name of them was?
Whiskey Brother. They're
Whiskey
not. They
Brother.
don't have a Cape Town branch. They one in Joburg, even though I'm in Cape Town. But they do online deliveries, and they just got everything, like all rare stuff. And we've been doing Thai whiskey and Japanese whiskey and all sorts of
Okay, okay.
weird shit. It's been cool. Yeah, check
And
it
has
out.
that been something that's been a? Have you ever had situations with alcohol? Or have you always just been an avid enjoyer
I'm
of these
lucky
things?
that in my rock and roll days, I wasn't very rock and roll, actually. I was in a very rock and roll band,
Yeah,
um, but I was,
cassette, right?
yeah, that's right. I mean, when I say rock and roll band, I don't think the band was rock and roll. I meant the members. I had some rock and roll
Yeah.
members in there. And I was always the one go, come on, guys, let's drink less. Let's take our music seriously. Let's make sure we're on
Okay.
the plane for the tour.
Yeah, all that
I
stuff.
was that guy. But later, after the band, um, I've had I've never had a problem with drinking, except that the one time I got taken back from Opikopi in an ambulance because,
Shh.
and it wasn't that long ago. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. I In the old days, my whole thing was I would drink a bottle of Jack a day at Opikopi. That was like my
Wow.
party trick.
Okay.
And
That's
I
a
tried
good
it
party
again a
trick.
couple of years back.
Okay, yeah, not a party trick
They
anymore.
found me when they were packing up what's the tent city called? I can't remember. The Krief Hotel. I was in the Krief
Yeah.
Hotel. It was the Sunday afternoon, and the organizers were packing the tents up, and I was lying paralytic in the tent in like 40-degree heat,
Oh my
half
goodness.
dead. So that wasn't fun.
No, sounds terrible.
But
And what about
no,
edibles? Have you ever had an experience like I had on these edibles the other day?
no, I'm lousy when it comes to drugs. Um, yeah, so I
Fair
haven't.
enough. Well, I should send you some of these things. I'll obviously not send you the full strong ones. I'll send you some.
I'm keen to give it a go. I don't know, Jez. I feel that my mind is quite insane. I do a lot of crazy shit in a day.
Mm.
I've done lots of mad projects, and I feel like to go inside there and throw shit in there, I don't know what's gonna happen. So have that fear.
I think that's the standard fear is
Yeah.
that somehow we maybe are too or maybe unstable or not able to handle it, and we've definitely
Well,
seen that stuff along the way. I
I'll
mean,
tell you,
it's possible.
I have the opposite problem for you because, for example, I'll give you a good example of why I would make a terrible drug addict. This weekend, I bought tickets to a Liam Gallagher online concert. He was doing a performance on the Thames River, and I thought this is cool
I
online,
saw that. Yeah, very cool.
So I bought the ticket, and then I found out it was actually a virtual reality concert, and
Okay.
I've never really, except for like 5 minutes, been in virtual reality. So I went on. I found a friend of mine who has these virtual reality goggles,
Yeah.
and I put them on this weekend, and I now feel like I'm a crack addict.
Yeah.
I've become like an extreme virtual reality obsessive,
Okay.
and I immediately recognize in myself that I could just become completely and utterly obsessed with this world, and that's also keeps me worried.
Yeah,
I
I
don't want
think
to meet
that's
God in an LSD trip because I will never come back from that.
yeah. I think there's valid. I think people all need to. The difficulty is when people don't understand how they operate and how their mind works to some extent, and I think a lot of the time, if you whether you choose to experiment or not, what the unhealthy part is just the when it's not, there's no purpose in it. There's no you're either not searching for something or it's when it becomes abusive when you're just
Yeah.
doing it to escape, or because you just like the feeling and it's not connected to some sort of work you're trying to do, whether that be like tangible
Hmm.
output work or just inner work. And I think if you feel that way, and that's probably right. I mean, you should not be
Dude,
maybe.
have you ever done VR? It's fucking
I
it's insane.
I clearly have not done the sort of VR you've done. I mean,
It's
I remember like
unfathomable.
trying on some glasses at like some tech convention maybe a few years back, but it's come
Yes,
a long
that was
way,
my
has it?
experience too until this weekend, and now I'm
Okay.
mind fucked. Re- the
Yeah.
real
Okay.
world
So I
is no longer important.
I need to basically do my next shows in VR.
You should definitely think about it. First of all, well, second of all, I just want to say cheers to you for
Oh.
reaching the German top 100,
Mm.
which is an extraordinary feat.
Did you
Um,
see that? Did you see that on my manager's feed on Facebook? I saw him posting about it.
yes, I did.
Yeah.
Tell me the story behind the amount, because I don't know how many people know how hard you work. And we have some mutual friends. So I actually am able to get a nice inside track on what you're doing and where you're doing it and how you're doing. It's
Okay.
very inspiring to me. Can you tell me a bit about your journey? It's been long and hard.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, it's been wild, eh? We do work hard. I certainly set a good pace with my team about just, you know what it is. I just really enjoy what I do, and I wasn't someone who was wanting to become a musician. I was actually trying to avoid poverty. I was always worried growing up that I wasn't going to be able to like make something of myself. I had that like real traditional fear about I had a lot of friends growing up who didn't really seem to care as much as I did with what they were going to do, and I was always like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like and so that's what led me down that path of studying business and law. And I was like, if I can get a really good business degree, I could probably take my otherwise like creative lackadaisical outlook on life. And growing up in Komiki, where all the guys grow up there, we're all like surfers and stoners. That's kind of what Komiki breeds: good surfers and good
Hmm.
stoners, but
Yeah, touche.
not always career people, you know. And difficult to get out of the valley as well if you grow up in the deep south where I'm from. Like a lot of people don't leave the deep south. It's kind of one of those places, and obviously it's not the be all and end all of like the world out there. You know, there's a lot going on, and I knew I wanted to be a part of it. I just had no idea how. And so when after many years of searching and stumbling around and trying different things, I worked lots of different jobs. I studied this totally different degree, which really went against all my natural strengths. I was not good at any of those subjects. Um, I just felt so grateful that I had somehow fallen into, or I didn't fall into music, but like that it all started working for me, and it happened so fast in the beginning. You know, people loved what I was putting out. I had so much energy for it, and I don't really look at anything I do as hard work nowadays. For me, it's just a progression of getting to do things I enjoy every day, and as long as I keep doing those things, it seems to be that everything unfolds in front of me quite nicely.
You say that, and I feel like you're speaking in retrospect because one of the interesting things you've been very strategic and very methodical about
Mm,
your. I mean, I've loved to. I like that. The few qualities about you that I admire is one, you don't just say yes to stuff. You think about stuff quite. You want to do stuff your way. You want it to feel right, and I know that because there's a few things from my orbit that's come around you. You've really had to take time to figure it out and figure out your way. And I know pre you, like for us, we toured the world hectically in our way, and a few people had sort of tried to do what you've done, but the way you approached the global touring, the way you've set the stepping stones and your vision for what you did, it feels completely out of all of the boxes. So I'm interested in how you built your roadmap because it's obviously worked.
yeah, well, yeah, maybe I shouldn't. Retrospectively, I suppose it feels like I just have worked really hard at the things I love. But the truth is, we are a very um, strategic team, I suppose. I've got strategic people around me. I've obviously, I was able to find some really solid individuals to surround myself with early on. And I also had some really difficult experiences in my earlier like business ideas and life, where it didn't work out, and it didn't work out on the back of often other people. So I learned early on not to trust others, and I kind of was very adamant when building JL and starting to build a music team and a strategy to go abroad, that I should be surrounded with people who are really like ready to protect my vision and the way I want to do things. And so yeah, if people have to deal with my manager Damon or Celeste, who runs my day to day, it's not easy to just kind of push onto them an idea of something that you'd like to do with us, because it's going to go through a bit of a stretch test before it even gets to me. And
I love that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, we like that as well, because the problem is if you say yes to things, and I saw this now, like what I've been doing almost as a way of just trying to secure enough of my time to do what's important to me, because that's all it comes down to. It's not that I don't want to do lots of different people's projects or work on collaborations with other artists. It's just that we have a plan of what we're trying to achieve. It takes a certain amount of energy and time to continually put the right things in place to do that. And that means that you don't have as much time to do things with other people or for other people, especially in that building phase, which is where I've felt like we've been for years now, which is like we've had success in other countries. We know what it can look like to build there, so we go out and try and do that. And when I met Ed Sheeren last year, one of the things that was nuts about working with him is that he doesn't have a phone at all. And like, just to think that there's someone, normally when you meet like people in South Africa who think they're famous, they are carrying like two phones. You know, they have their personal phone and they have their like for everyone else motherfucker phone, because I'm so important. And when I met Ed, he just didn't have a phone at all, and I was like, that's how you know you're important, when you don't even have to carry one, and the people in your team around you know how to make sure you are aware of the things you need to be aware of. And otherwise, he was completely present in that songwriting studio. I was the one who was like every now and then having to field a question from someone on my team on my phone. I made a point of not doing that on that writing day. But I was really impressed with that. And I said to him afterwards, I was like, how long have you not had a phone for? And he was like, it's been a couple of years now. And I was like, how do you communicate? And he was like, in the morning I do emails on an iPad. In the evening I do emails on my iPad. And for the rest, I would only be, no one needs me for anything else, because everyone knows what to do. And I was like, see, that you look at Ed and you think he's just this relaxed guy, but he's actually also incredibly strategic and focused. And it's about protecting his own energy so that he can do what he's good at, which is write songs. And that's, I don't know. And then we did that, and he was uninterrupted the whole day. And I was like,
he obviously doesn't have a girlfriend.
He does. I think he's got a wife. I mean, he's just had a kid. Yeah. He's on that path. But
how did you end up? How did you end up meeting him, putting that together?
The Ed thing. He came on tour here. He did shows in South Africa. And I went to a talk that he was part of in Langa for Bridges for Music. And I think Trenton and them were putting that on. And it was just like a cool thing he was doing to give back and be available to talk to South African artists. And I was there at the back of the crowd, and I didn't say much. I just was interested in sussing him out a little bit. And then he did a bit of a Q&A afterwards, and I managed to scoop the last question. And I introduced myself. I said, I hope you don't mind, my question's maybe a little complicated, but I have a feeling if anyone knows the answer to it, it would be you. My name's Jeremy. I'm also an artist. And he just stopped me and he was like, I know who you are. You're Jeremy Loops. And I was like, yeah. And
wow.
The whole crowd were like, whoa.
That's cool. Shit.
And he was
that's
like,
cool.
And then he said, you're a far better loop artist than I am. And I was like, that's not true at all, actually, really. So I said that. I was like, that's not true, but thank you. And my question
wow, your brain must have blown up.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, not really. I didn't listen to Ed Sheeran beforehand, and I don't say that in any sort of spiteful way. It just wasn't for me, and
Right.
I wasn't aware. I was aware of how massive he was, but I wasn't awestruck by his presence, I suppose, like I would be if I saw like Andrew Bird, who's like my folk
Oh, I
hero.
love Andrew Bird. Shit, I love him.
Yeah, and so I asked him this question, and he gave me a pretty solid answer. And afterwards, one of his security guys just came and tapped me and said, "Ed wants to meet you." And I went backstage and met him, and he invited me to come to his show that night. So I went to his show, and then there was an after party that he was hosting, and we basically got to the after party, and it became quickly apparent to me that he and I were operating on a similar wavelength, at least in the way we communicate and the way we understand our worlds. And so we just ditched his whole after party and basically got drunk in the corner. Um, and we were just like speed dating. We were asking all the questions and drinking all the drinks. And I remember feeling distinctly bad for Passenger, who was there, because Passenger was opening for him on that tour. And no one could get a word in because Ed was finding me really amusing. I think he was very curious because he's quite a business-minded musician. He was very curious how I had sold out the Brixton Academy, which had just happened then. And he was just like, I don't understand how did you sell that? That's a venue that like UK artists take decades to ever sell out and probably never will. And it marks the beginning of the next phase. If you've sold out the Brixton Academy, then from there it's like something really must happen. So how did you get there? And I was trying to explain to him that I did like, I don't know, I was trying to explain to him why I thought we had built a following over there. But I think it was just quite odd for him to meet a South African who was doing something so relevant in his home market, which he knew so many of his peers were never able to do themselves. So that was how we started. And then he just said to me, he's like, dude, you got to come and write with me in the UK when I've got time next. And I was like, well, you don't have to say that just because we're having fun together. Like, I know you don't need to be writing with Jeremy Loops when you're writing with Beyonce and Eminem and shit. But he just laughed and said, no, we should do it. And I didn't hear from him for maybe 6 months. And he gave me his email, and I thought, well, let me not bother him because if I was Ed Sheeran, I wouldn't want to be bothered. He only checks his iPad once a day.
He doesn't have a phone. He's only got his email.
But eventually I heard from him, and he invited me to come and work in his studio. And so we booked a flight, and I went over there and spent... I was actually due to go for a UK trip anyways, and I was in studio over there for other things. So we blended it all into one and went to his estate down in wherever it is that he lives, in rural England, this beautiful little town. And it was amazing. Great guy.
So are you
amazing
songwriting
studio.
for yourself or for him or for other artists? What does the songwriting collaboration with Ed Sheeran mean?
We didn't go in having a goal, but I think that generally when you write with someone else like that, you're writing to see what comes and following it down. But the interest was to write something for my album. I think like from his side, the interest for writing with someone like myself is that he's already blown up and he's doing really well off his music. He likes the idea, I think, of writing songs with artists who might just blow up. And then he's got like a stake in the songwriting, or he
Smart,
can even...
man. Smart.
Yeah, I think that's like business development for him. It's like, how do I remain relevant down the line? Well, I suppose it's if I write myself into a whole bunch of future hits. And from my side, I would have loved it if he was like, oh, I'm going to use one of these songs on my record, because that would be insane. But I was also much more interested in coming out with a song that could be on my album, because I was writing towards my album. So we wrote 2 songs, one of which is an absolute banger and will be on my album. And it won't be a feature. He's not singing on it. It's a co-write. So we collaborated. We wrote the song together. He's not performing on it.
And what do you feel the songwriting chemistry was? Do you think you'll be invited back for more, or? This is cool, man. This is cool. This is cool shit.
I'm sure I could be, for sure. We got on really well just as people, and I think that's how Ed it's actually so. I think that's why we liked each other, because that's how I operate. So if you're in my bubble and I trust you and I like working with you, I love working with all the same people all over the place. I've been with the same. I think that's a cornerstone of our success as well. Like I haven't been through 5 managers in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
I've had 1. I've had 2 managers, but strategically Damon I brought on because I knew he was one of the best guys in the country to do it.
He's a good dude, man. He's a great,
good dude.
Great. One of the trustworthy ones, in my opinion.
Yeah,
One of the trustworthy few.
If you get on the wrong side of him, I don't know what you'll think about him, but he's an amazing gatekeeper. He's an amazing, like, you know, you want sometimes to have people in your corner who are ready to fight for you. And that's essentially what this world of music often is. It's like, it's not always pretty. There is stuff behind the scenes. There's legal contracts with everything. If you don't have someone who's really got your best interests at heart, you can find yourself in a difficult place as an artist. And so I think Ed's a little bit the same. Like the lady who picked me up from my hotel and took me 3 hours to where he lives was this really beautiful old woman in her like mid-70s, I would say. And I was surprised that she was the driver of this like black tinted window big van.
Don't tell me it was his mum.
No, it wasn't his mom. It was, that's what was so cool about it. It was like some lady who had been working for him for like almost a decade, she said. And
wow.
And I was like, that's cool, because that's what I do in my business. My sister works with me. She's been working with me for years now. My band members, some of them work in the band, like Mateo works in the business. And I like it like that. I like that whole like mom and pop shop and people you can trust and people that will build and grow with you, as opposed to just trying to
that
run
was
it like
you. I think that was
business.
the thing for you too, actually, as well. They have got the same team from the beginning to the end.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, it's something I always think that I look at a band like the Parlotones, who are been around for 20 years, and I look at my band. We just chopped and changed left, right, and center to try and find the right fit for the right jigsaw puzzle. And we didn't last. 6 years we lasted. And the Parlotones, who were contemporaries of ours, still going. They just kept their little family together. And I think that's something I really overlooked. You know.
Yeah. And it's not easy, because when things get tough, which they invariably do multiple times a year often, it can feel a lot easier to walk away from situations. You know, we've had lots of things along the way where you're kind of like, is this person the right person for this? Do I need to do it like this? Could I be doing it differently? And I think if you can find the determination to work with the people that you trust, and you all kind of grow together. I think it can have its own growing pains attached to it for sure, but it always leaves you in a place where you can rely on people. And I think that's what, for artists, like that's what really freaks me out, is when I can't rely on people. If I, you know, like when I was chopping through, I did have some sound engineer changes at one stage where my tech team, you know, like we've always had quite a strong, I've always been adamant that I need like a good sound engineer and a stage hand so that our shows are always good. And I've always been willing to invest in that. But we went through a stage where we had like a bit of a poor tech team, and not for very long, because I was like, this is not going to cut it. Like I need people I can trust. And I think also if you set that up, you know, like I don't know the story of the Parlotones. I mean, I know that they had some complications along the way, managerial complications, but I can see what you mean, that they've kept like solid. But I think it comes with an intention. You have to remind yourself that that's the intention, and then you have to set those intentions with the people you work with and make sure that they're all looked after in the right ways and happy and feeling fulfilled. And it's I suppose, it's
like being the CEO of a business, which you are.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely, there's any artist who don't realize that music is a business, and that's not just something that's thrown around like, oh, it's the music business. It really is a fucking business. It's actually one of the more complicated businesses out there. And if you don't understand the detail, then you're just someone playing.
And you can't learn the details. You have to learn it on the rope. on the road. They're not written
Yeah.
anywhere, and there's no one who can help you. You have to figure it out while you're doing it, which is the worst part about it.
Yeah, that is the worst part about it, is how few people there are to ask, and how every situation is different, and the rules often that exist out there are first world rules. You know, they're like America based. You can read books. You know, I've read all the books, but they're mostly all based on American contracts. Some of them British.
Maybe, Jay, you're going to have to write the South African music industry book.
Yeah, we could for sure.
No, I think you should. I'm telling you, you should do it.
Oh, I
think
should
it's
for sure
needed.
do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, look, you're right. Probably people would read it. I think a lot of people, if whether they like me or my music or not, they all know that we are one of the few bands that have been able to like figure certain things out. So
that's the thing. You haven't listened. You haven't listened. You've actually carved your own path, and I think that's really, really unique. I know this is. I'm attracted to you and your career and what you do because I tried it and I failed at it, and I tried hard, really hard.
Yeah,
but
you
watching
did. And you guys were
succeeded-
really beautifully close as well. It wasn't that you were like just kind of hopelessly pretending you were going to make it. I know that Cassette had very real deals on the table and very real potential.
You know, but then I got in the way. That's the you know.
Was it you that got in the way?
No, I'll be honest. I think the band feels that way, and I've adopted that, but I don't know that it's true. I think I was responsible for the successes as much as the failures. We all were. We were. The difference with us, Jeremy, was it wasn't the John Savage project. We had 5 very strong personalities. We were all equally strong, and at some point, where things changed for me, as I was like, we can't even make a decision in this band because everyone's pulling like wild horses in 5 different directions. So the only way this band's going to get anywhere is if I tell the whole band to fuck off and I'm going to make the decisions.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. And that didn't work. That didn't work out so well. Anyway, enough about me.
I suppose it was a lot easier. It's been a lot easier for me to hold that line because I made those choices early on.
Yeah. Also, early on, it was just you, and you've grown your little empire from what you have. And that's really cool. I mean, I'm a big fan of what you're doing, man. It's incredible. And also, we have a mutual friend. I don't know if you know the one I'm referring to, with the initials GC. He's the dad of some twins.
Oh yeah, right on. Okay.
Yeah. So I work with him a lot as well. So I get to find out a lot about what you do. I love what you're doing, man.
Gotcha.
Tell me something.
Sorry, wait. I have to stop you. I'm lying. I don't know who you're talking about.
I'm talking about Greg Johnson.
Okay, Greg Johnson. Yeah, of course.
What did I say? GC. I spelled.
No, you said GC, and I was like,
DJ.
Yeah. Greg's a great guy. I mean,
he's an angel for me in my life. An angel.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was one of the people I sought out. I mean, I haven't spoken to him closely in a long time, but when I was needing to try to pull off some really difficult business maneuvers, he was a really great guy to bounce ideas off because he had seen quite a lot of things. And I
think the sign of growing up is when you're not speaking to him regularly. That's how I feel.
Right.
You go back when you need to get back on path. But if you're making your own decision.
Okay, wow.
Do you remember? I don't know if you. I don't want to call this full circle or anything romantic like that, but I think I did one of the first interviews with you on 5FM. I don't know if you remember this. You were brand new on the scene. I was on 5. You were still just arriving. I think you got one song on the radio. Do you have any memory of this? And you basically, I didn't know you, but I think we did it in Cape Town, actually.
Oh, it was in Cape Town, okay.
I rarely ever did shows from Cape Town. I might be wrong about this. And I have a feeling you came to the Cape Town studio.
Okay.
And basically you told me, look, you'd never really listened to any South African music. You'd gone on a boat for like a year. You didn't really know anything about anything. You'd learned guitar. You just arrived. You'd written this song. And now you're in the sort of throes of figuring out what to do next.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds, I mean, I can't remember this at all, but that sounds exactly true. And interesting as well that you remembered that I said that I didn't know any South African music, because that's something that I have always like asked myself how so I think I just was never interested in music, like in that way. Like I was never a music fan. I think growing up in Komiki, like we were so distant from any sort of music scene,
Hmm.
that even the idea of like going to the city, you normally went there just to go like get mangled at some random party. You had no idea, like I had no idea growing up that there were like bands playing and a scene to take part in. It just wasn't on my radar. All we thought about was like surfing and doing what we knew doing from Komiki. So like that was it was strange for me, like when I got onto the music scene, where I hadn't music wasn't what I was thinking of doing. It's just that I started looping and busking, and it just started taking off. So and everyone
Hmm.
wanted a piece of it, and in like I think it was 2 months of like live looping, and I found myself on stage, and then a couple of months of being on stage, and I was at festivals, and then a couple of months later, all within like the space of a year, I was on radio and getting booked for Kirstenbosch, and it really was like a dizzying meteoric rise, I suppose, with the whole live looping stuff that I was doing, and that people were really
You were
ready for
definitely
something like
looping
that.
before Ed Sheeran. I do
Maybe,
know that.
yeah, probably, yeah. But I was, yeah, it was that. So when I started having those interviews and being asked questions about the industry, I really had no idea of any other bands, of like anything about the way it worked. And even at the festivals, I remember getting like some weird vibes from artists who maybe were like, "Who's this dude?" like on the scene, and I was like, I
And you were
didn't know
like,
who
"Who's
any.
this dude?"
I was like, I don't know who any of you are. Like, I didn't even know we had festivals. This is great news for my blossoming music career.
So I take it you're not. Are you a voracious music absorber, or are you more interested in the creative development than? Because I mean, it's interesting to me that you wouldn't have done your homework on Ed Sheeran before going to see him,
Yeah,
go and have a chat with him, and now look at the two of you best buds.
yeah. I
And
don't
maybe,
listen
yeah,
to.
maybe that played a part in that.
I definitely think it does. I don't listen to many other artists' music, and I don't listen to my own music that much either. And I certainly don't listen to like any music that I don't like just for the sake of trying to be relevant, or feel like I'm part of the now sound. Like a lot of the time when I work with producers, I'm acutely aware that they have like a encyclopedic understanding of all the
What's
other
hip?
sounds and what's happening and what's not happening anymore. Specifically, they know, they're like, we're not going to use that sound. That's not a vibe. And I always am very happy that that's not the world I live in. Like I'm still quite old school. I like listening to Andrew Bird, and like I listen to old music that gets me inspired. And every now and then artists come along who do something that blows my mind, and I'll listen to all their stuff just because I love it. But you won't find me just browsing for new things necessarily. I would sooner be just making new things of my own. I think that's what I generally am spending my creative time with. And if I'm not making music, or working on things and listening to things that I'm interested in specifically, then I'd be doing some of my other hobbies.
So, can you tell me a bit about? Okay, well, I've got two sides. Let me start with this. You am I right in remembering that you're actually starting to collaborate with songwriters from all over the world? That's part of what you're doing, both strategically and obviously artistically.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. The success we've had overseas has opened a lot of doors, and I mean, for me, that's I suppose what this has always been about, is like how do you reach the right people and get to the right places. If some sort of quasi South African fame that I have allows anything, it allows that. It allows me to pick up the phone and connect with people that are interesting to me. So, like on this record that we did now, I really wanted to work with the producer who did the first two Lumineers albums, because I think he's clearly did an amazing job with those albums. They're so timeless.
Cool.
And I was able to, yeah, through my team, get hold of his team. And these producers don't get out of bed for just anything. So you have to kind of have a certain amount of like strategic relevance for their path as well. And we've got that in a lot of spheres now. And the more you write with kind of interesting people, I mean, I suppose Ed also knew about me, not just because he had Googled me. Like I know that Ed, he said that he was like, "Oh, I Googled some of your like songs. I like that Down South song you did, and I like the way you loop with a band. I've always
That's
wanted to
fucking
loop with a
amazing,
band."
bro. I just want to tell you what an amazing thing that is.
Oh, thanks. Cool.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's crazy and
it is
awesome.
crazy. Yeah. No, it is. It is cool. It's very cool. And but but he also knew that I'd worked with Jake Gosling, and Jake Gosling did, Jake Gosling produced the song Waves from my second album, which was yeah, it was a big success, I suppose. It was one of the big singles from my second album. And so he knew that. He knew I'd worked with Jake because Jake is a big songwriter in London. So all these things seem to kind of like touch each other and move in these ways. So that's what I really enjoy
Cool,
about this
man.
position, is getting to try and reach some people that I like. So I also worked with on this new record with a guy called Ed Holloway, who is the Lewis Capaldi producer, the guy who did a lot of Lewis's big songs last year. And so also just an incredibly dynamic, like happening guy. And I got to work with him in London. He and I enjoyed working together so much. We worked on this one song, which I knew immediately. I was like, this is for sure going on my record. It's like ticking all the boxes. And so I invited him to come and fly down and live with me here in Musenberg, which he wanted to do. He was like, I love the idea. So
That's so
he
cool.
came and stayed here, and we spent 2 weeks working on 4 songs
Mm.
that I had wanting him to work on with me. And yeah, that's what's been amazing. And the cool thing as well about these writers is how different they all are. You know, like none of them, creatives in general in the music scene, are so different. Like Ed Sheeran is good at a very specific thing. You know, like he's got very specific strengths, and as soon as you're writing with him, you understand what those are. Like his melodies are ridiculous. Like he just breathes melodies. Like everything he says can be a melody if he wants it to be. He just has one of those voices, and he thinks like that. But then we had, you know, when I was working with him, we had Steve Mack in the room, and Steve Mack is the biggest producer in the world. It's the guy who did like Ed Sheeran's Shape of You and just about every other hit in the last 2 years. And so Steve was taking care of all the technical shit, you know, like, so Ed and I could just meander melodies and sing things, and then he was like wizardry
Was
in the
he
background.
was he choosing bits or was he just
So we had one other guy in the room with us that day who was helping with the choosing, which is a guy called Johnny McDade. I don't know if you know him. He's the lead songwriter from Snow Patrol,
right?
and he is an absolute beast in the industry. Like everyone knows Johnny McDade in the songwriting industry because he's on like some ridiculous publishing deal with Sony, where they pay him gazillions. I think he's married to Courtney Cox, and he's what they call like a wordsmith. So I think he's one of Ed's chosen right-hand mans to have in the studio.
So
So
is he
that,
offering feedback and saying change that word and stuff?
yeah, so like we might be riffing over some chords and singing some melodic ideas, and you'll be like, "Da-da-da-da," and he'll be like, "Oh, you know what that," and he won't say anything at first. He'll just sit there and he just like listens and writes. And then after like 15 minutes, he's like, you know, at that part by the potential bridge where you sang something that was like, "Da-da-da," imagine it said, "When I see you," and, you know, and then you like, and
And
then
you
you'll
go
be like,
like, fuck.
then you'll be like, because it ties into what you guys, I don't know if you meant to say it, but when in the second verse area, you kept mentioning these words. So like, he's like
So cool.
that sort of dude. So I also have been learning a little bit about how top writers and producers like Ed put their teams together, you know, like having someone who's there to allow him to really flex melodically and creatively and not worry too much about the detail, and they're kind of catching detail, and they also record everything. So like you've got recorded references to come back to if you want to skip back and go like, what did we sing an hour and a half ago? There was something gangster there. But then the process with Ed was so different from the process with like Felice Simone from the Lumineers. He's from the New York State, and it was totally different. He has this like room with a big what's it? It's a massive Jimi Hendrix picture from when Jimi Hendrix went to the studio and went hunting for the first time, like for elk in the forest. And there's a picture of Jimmy with this massive crossbow.
Crossbow, fuck.
Something like that. Like it's like he went hunting for the first time, and so this studio has like history. And this producer would like go into that room with the grand piano and Jimmy on the wall and all the history, and he would light candles, and he would ask me to do the same because we were doing this over Zoom this year. So, and thankfully there were some like pretty techno wizardry applications on our computers where you can actually like listen to each other in real time, connect the microphones, do playback, and he could hear what I was recording. And so then he would like be on there with me. He'd be like, "Oh, I love that take. Do that same take again, but try and slow it down. Really channel the energy of Jimmy here and the Rockies here. You know, like he was all about getting me into the process of it all,
The vibe.
so I could
The
develop
rituals.
like and that was it. So I think all these people I've been meeting, they all have their own ways, and it's all quite different, and my way is quite different, and there's no right way. At the end of the day, it's just about, can you come up with a beautiful song at the end of it?
What is your songwriting sort of style? Are you walking around and singing stuff in your head? Are you quite hard working in the studio? Like, do you just pick up a guitar and start jamming? You come up with a concept?
Yeah, it was nice for me to work with Ed because it made me realize, gave me more perspective on the way I do work, which is actually very similar to the way he works, where it's quite hyper focused. I don't walk around continually like making songs in my head and thinking about that stuff. I'm generally walking around thinking about all sorts of other things. But when I sit down with my guitar, I normally put my voice notes on, and I'll often write songs quite quickly. Sometimes they take a lot longer, but at least the essence or the idea comes quickly. And I generally am not writing any serious lyrics up front. For me, it's about trying to channel the melody and find really sounds and melodies that catch my ear. And what I find is that when I eventually flesh those songs out and spend a bit more time in studio and record the guitar and then start working on the lyrics, is that if I listen back to those early Essence recordings where it's just freestyling, I generally have captured like 70% of the subject matter of the song there without trying to. Unconsciously, yeah. And I think to some extent it's conscious. Like it's the same way like a freestyle rapper can rap in real time and kind of get there, like it's a similar thing. Like I can say almost what I want to say without really trying and focusing on the melody. As long as I forget about the lyrics, they kind of end up being there a lot of the time. And then I can go back and really rework the ideas. And a lot of the time I capture a lot more of the lyrics than I would imagine right up front. So definitely not the wordsmith myself, where I spend that time up front getting the lyrics right or the concept right and then writing the music to it, which I think is also a very good way to go about it. I know a few songwriters who like to work that way. A lot of the professional guys you work with overseas, they want to work that way. What's the idea? How long should the song be? What would you like it to say? And how do you want people to feel? And from that
Great
point,
questions.
let's work backwards, And I work the other way around. I'm like, this is how I'm feeling, and here's what came out, and now let's like figure out how to make a bit more sense of that.
Tell me a little bit about your lockdown experience. I know you were quite active at some point, just trying to figure out what the fuck was going on and what to do. What did you learn?
Yeah, well, I learned definitely about adjusting, and I think I've been in an interesting position that my career like really stretch tested me in these last few years. I worked super hard. We traveled nonstop, and there was almost at many times just felt like not a single thing I could hold on to that was any form of routine. Like if it wasn't like, and me and the band have quite different schedules as well. So the band will come on tour with me, and we'll go on these like wild gallivanting tours with huge ups and downs and massive emotional crashes afterwards and huge euphoric moments, sold out shows in Berlin or some shit. But then that ends and everyone comes home, and I have like a week turnaround before I ship myself off to the UK to go and write songs with Ed Sheeren or something like that. It just feels like it never stops. And so I had no certainty ever about my like calendar, my schedule. I really rely on my team to help like work out my life for me so that I can just be nailing it in the present moment and trying not to be totally burnt out about it. And this year felt like that for everyone at the same time. Everyone's certainty was taken away. No one knew what they were supposed to do. No one could rely on their schedules or their calendars. And I actually really got to sit back for the first time in like a decade and enjoy so many people around me I was always used to them making me feel like I didn't have any certainty, which I didn't. But it's funny, I almost got left with a bit more certainty than most people in this lockdown, because I was like, oh yeah, I know what this feels like to have no idea where I'm supposed to be and can hardly catch my breath before the next big expectation is there, ready to be slayed. And that was a nice feeling for a few months when I was actually like, sure, I can deal with this. But that wore off, and then I had to figure out how to do my life as well, and how to give back. I was very obsessed with trying to not be idle, and how I could be useful in these times. So we did a lot of work, yeah, in that vein.
And a personal question is, are you in a relationship of sorts?
Mm.
And how has lockdown helped or hurt? I mean, surely having a schedule like yours, it's very hard to keep a relationship together, or not?
No,
I don't know.
it has been difficult for sure. What about you? You've got children, right?
I'm married, but I don't do the touring stuff anymore. So I got
Yeah,
married
no, of
and I got a
course.
kid. I married my keyboard player, which was
Oh,
awesome.
done. Easy.
So sorted, yeah. But I
Yeah.
don't have the schedule that you have. So
Yeah, it's definitely been difficult. I date a very compassionate, flexible,
what you do
and yeah,
yoga?
wonderful
Jokes.
person. She does some yoga. No, she's a gymnast. In all
Oh, that's why you say
seriousness.
flexible.
No, I'm just kidding. She's not a gymnast. She's a doctor. She's a doctor, so she works incredibly hard. She's very selfless, and yeah, it's been interesting because she's been so deep in trying to figure. Doctors get stretch tested also, like
Yeah,
in a way
that's a good
which,
match. I can see how that can work.
yeah. So she understands my pain, and like when I'm working really hard, and she will do 30-hour shifts, and I'm like, cool, I get it. Like, it's it is what it is. So that I think that helped us.
Not
But
quite the
lockdown,
same doing a 30-hour shift in a hospital and doing a 30-hour writing shift with Ed Sheeran in London, just for the record.
yeah, it's also not quite the same when I'm like, baby, you have no idea. Like, my life's so
So
tough. And she's
hard.
like, shame. It must be really difficult for you to jump on stage to 5,000 adoring fans and have them scream your name for like 2 hours and then get drunk.
Poor
Like,
you.
I'm like, it's
Poor
not that
Jeremy.
I don't just get drunk after the shows. It's networking. It's like difficult. And she's like, sure it is. Yeah. Anyways, I'll see you later.
Yeah, I
Gotta
got
go
a
back to
stab
my,
wound, motherfucker.
yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting for
Yeah.
sure. But and I've been around for the first time, so I've been around this
Mm,
whole year, and that's been a nice change. I've been doing a
cool.
lot of gardening. Like, I don't know, you can't see my garden, but I spend a lot of time making it pretty.
Mm,
Got all sorts
cool.
of things growing out there,
Oh
and
yeah.
so that was for me a really cathartic thing to do this year. Really get stuck into gardening again and building stuff. And I think it's been nice for her to arrive home, and I'm here. Like, the dog's been walked and the house is looking groomed. Well, not the house interior, but definitely the outside.
All right, last question, then I'll let you go back to your life.
Go on.
New album, new plans. What's Jeremy Loop's 2021 looking like?
Oh, it's exciting. This whiskey is smooth. It's tasty.
Nice. Hey, I must say, of my whiskeys so far, this one I'm enjoying one of the most. I think this is a great one we've got here, this Loch Lomond.
It's very, very nice, very smooth, very easy drinking, which is great. I'm not a fan of the hugely peaty
Mm.
Lagavulins of the world. Like, I used to try to get into them, but eventually I was just like, man, I'm an O-band kind of guy. So that's what you'll
Nice.
find on my counters, like the silkier ones. Which this is a nice
Well,
one.
they chose well then.
They did, yeah. What was the question?
Next year, plans
Oh
for
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I've got so many plans for next year because most of my 2020 plans were put on hold. So
So you've got 2 years to get through in 1 year.
yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of. We had huge tours cancelled this year, and that if anything was sad for me, it was just that like we've been pushing for years to get to the level where we got booked for main stages. And last year we had some of our first like playing the main stage, but later in the afternoon. We had that one show late last year where we basically were playing right before Billie Eilish and 21 Pilots at that huge festival.
Which
Anyways,
country?
it was in Austria. In Austria at their biggest festival. It was like 50,000 or 100,000 people. It was a bigger stage we've played. And I had Dermot Kennedy on before me, then us, then Billie Eilish, and then
Wow.
21 Pilots. It was a ridiculous lineup, and we got paid properly for it. And I was like, cool, this feels like we're arriving in the right spaces, the right lineups. And then this year, on the back of last year's successful shows, we smashed all those shows. We got our first, not like headline, but we were headlining like and playing 10 o'clock slots, like right before the biggest headliner. We were getting those sorts of slots this year. And to have all of those pulled away, that really twisted my mind. I was like, it took us 5 years to build to that point of touring these markets and proving ourselves on those stages. And now we finally got all those paydays, we got all those big stages, and it was all gone. So this year was like my retirement year, man. I was planning on just like kicking back after this, buying a boat and doubling down on just like a studio and some songwriting. But that's going to have to wait until next year for sure. So touring next year, hopefully, if it becomes possible again. And if not, I've written the entire third album with lots of extras, which is just ready to go. I can't bring myself to release it or give a date.
Maybe you should do 2 albums next year. It'll be like, why don't you literally make a plan to have both your years happen next year?
Well, yeah, one could, I suppose. I've also enjoyed like slowing down the music and actually like I've been releasing singles this year. So
I see that.
instead of doing albums, Jack, I thought, well, let me rather, if I can't go and tour this album, which I think is important, if you're going to release albums that have a theme and have all this energy put into them, you should go and be able to sing those songs to people, because sometimes after you've toured an album in the beginning, you don't get to keep playing all those songs because you have to fit like your hit songs into your set. So you end up like keeping like the 3 or 4 best songs from the album, and a lot of them fall by the wayside, which I found really tragic because my second album had some songs in it that I love, but at my live shows, I know those songs are just obscure to people and they want certain songs. And I've always been like of the opinion that you also want to give the people what they want. It's part of what gets me, has got me here, is just being sensitive to the fact that my audience wants certain things. So I don't know. I'm going to release the album when I'm ready, but it's not going to be until they tell us we can go and tour again. And in the meanwhile, I'm just going to keep releasing songs. I've been loving releasing a song and having a lot of focus around that song and a music video. And
You directed this video as well.
the recent one, Till I Found You. Yeah, have you seen it?
A great video, man. As a fellow director, I was like, oh, fuck, this guy can do this too.
Yeah, I've been getting that feeling from people. I'm not going to lie. Some of the people that I used to work with or that I would hire to be directors have been very stingy with their compliments because they've been seeing it like do really well.
No, you've done a good job there, man. Really good.
But I have so much respect for what you do. I mean, I know that I've watched a bunch of the things you've directed. I actually just a few days ago, by chance, watched the Jack Parrow and Zolani video you did.
Army of One, right?
Yeah. And it was hilarious. It was like well produced, like lots of stuff going on there. And I was like, damn, I forgot this guy has this whole side of what you do. It's a difficult world to dream up ideas and then see them through from a directorial video point of view. It's a totally new thing for me.
Well, good for you, man. You're doing amazing stuff, and despite everything that's been thrown at you and your career put on pause, along with a lot of other artists, I think it makes this it makes the idea that you've made the German charts even more cool, that you can do that without the ammunition of people seeing how powerful you are live. So,
We have been waiting for that moment for years now. Like German radio is like the holy grail. You know, like Louis Capaldi, he last year broke on German radio, or the year before, whenever it was. It's the thing that's still like they still listen to radio in Germany. That's what blows my mind.
it's the
They
second
love it.
biggest market in the world. It's America, then Germany.
Yeah,
If you can't crack America, crack Germany.
that's what everyone says. I mean, we
Oh,
don't we put all of our resources
into the
towards
US.
Germany. We
Oh, into Germany, you did
no into Germany.
strategically.
Like yeah,
Oh.
I decided years ago after I went on that tour with Milky Chance in
Hmm.
the in the US. I was like, this is the last time. Like I hate touring this place.
I didn't know this.
I love my US audience, but I hate touring America, and for just very simple pragmatic reasons is that the
It's huge.
it's so big. Like to
Yeah.
get from city to city is an 8-hour drive, and fans must understand that if we are on the road for 6 weeks playing a show every night or every other night, and all you have is your few hours in the day to relax before that, the last thing you want to do is do an 8-hour drive every day.
Yeah.
And in Europe, that doesn't exist. In Europe, you're bouncing like an hour, 2 hours, like city to city. It's so much gentler on your body and mind and ethos. So we took all those resources we were funneling towards the States and just put it all towards Germany. And
Smart,
to finally,
smart, smart.
to see that breakthrough has been amazing. And it actually was charting at 66 today. So
Wow.
it's
Because was
flying
it
up that
99
chart.
yesterday or the
It
day
was at
last week?
99 like Friday last week. Yeah, every Friday they lock it in place. So and then during the week it drifts around, and then on Friday they tally up where it should be for the week. But yeah, if you get into the top 40, I mean the top 100's real, because when you get into the top 100 in Germany, all the smaller stations start to watch what's happening in the top 100. So you get picked up by all the regional stations, and in Switzerland and in Austria and any of the other countries who follow the Germans. But when you get into the top 40 in Germany, that's when shit changes. Like that's when you'll find, yeah, that's when everything starts to change. And if you can get a top 10 in Germany, like lo and behold, then you can be on that Louis Capaldi train where all of a sudden you start blowing up everywhere because you blew up there first. So very nice to have an early breakthrough with this song at German radio, despite lockdown and all the hardships.
Cheers to you. You deserve it, man. And listen, don't sneeze, bro. You're on the 38th biggest podcast in South Africa in the comedy section. So,
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. Yeah, well done for doing it. You know, it's nice to have these sort of chats, and I know it's an uphill battle in South Africa where we don't have the sorts of numbers for everything always. You know, and
I'll be honest.
it's way more important that we're doing this than
I'm learning something about this podcast, because my issue in general is that I'm generally the guy trying really hard to do stuff, and I built a radio station and I built all the blah, 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 blah. This podcast is nothing but fun for me. I have no agenda. I have no commercial ambitions. And it's one of the best performing sort of online digital projects. I've got huge stars doing stuff. I've got things happening all over. But for some reason, this is the podcast that breaks through every time. And so I'm trying to teach myself to just let it be what it is, not try and make it anything that it isn't. So just going with the flow. It's very interesting to me. I don't really understand why this podcast does well, but I love doing it. There's no agenda. I haven't written down any questions. I only talk to people that I like. The one time I decided, oh, this guy's a big star, I'm going to interview him, it was the worst performing podcast. For some reason, it has 17 listens, even though it's like one of the biggest stars. And whenever I just go with people that I like, this podcast does well. And I broke the rule once. I'll never break it again.
Yeah, I mean, that's really insightful what you're saying, because I think it is like that in life. And I think when you try too hard, you muddy the water. And I think we all, as human beings, and artists as well specifically, or people trying to do creative things, you can gain a lot by letting go
Listening
of the process,
to yourself.
having a bit of faith, and also just putting things out. I mean, I haven't been a fan of like putting things out in an unorganized way. We're always very strategic about how we launch things, but I am very adamant with my own music that like when I'm happy with the song, like when I'm done with it, I'm done with it, and I don't like break myself trying to make it perfect. It's like if it really gets me going, that's enough, and then I let go of that process. Like with the song "Till I Found You," and the same with the music video. Like
Great
we
song.
worked really hard on it, but then when we got the music video done and we got a few edits in, I was like, this is working for me. We could go back and forth for ages on trying to get this perfect, or trying to figure out how it could be better for an overseas market, or how it could be better for TikTok. And then we were like, screw it. It doesn't matter. Like let the video go and do its thing. And I think we all need to try and remember that. Like let things have their own value. If they've got their own value, like if this podcast has value to your audience, it will get watched and they will share it or watch it again because it has that value. We spend way too much time in our own heads and not just trying to put the value into the things we do. And let it live there.
Touche, J-Lo, Jay-Z, J-Loops. Lots of love to you, man. I've loved having you. Thank you for making the time. I know how busy you are and I appreciate it. Congratulations. And I will continue to watch the saga from afar. I
enjoy having an excuse to schedule, like this got scheduled into my day. You know, Celeste was working on my calendar. She was like, don't forget you've got that thing at 4:30. And I was like, yeah, the thing that I've got a bottle of whiskey to drink to. Easy. I think you've got a good marketing campaign here. It's like, I'll happily
That's
do
not
one of
the
these
point.
Again.
As soon as you say that, you make me nervous. I want to keep it real, man. It's not about that. It's about this.
It's not about getting drunk. Okay,
no,
kids?
It is about that. It's actually about connecting with the person.
Yes, I'm just playing.
In a very real way. That's why
we've done that.
Yeah, well, I think we've done a good job. So thanks to you.
No, thanks to you.
Get out of here and get back onto your life already.
All right, peace out. I'm leaving.
Take care, bro.
Bye.